Welcome everyone to another of our sessions with Hostify. Today we have with us a great friend and a great expert on the revenue from PriceLabs. So he's Fausto. Welcome, Fausto.
Hi, welcome guys. Thank you for having me.
All right. So today we're going to speak a little bit about the strategies, and it's going to be more an instructive and learning path for strategies more based on revenue. Basically, we're going to focus ourselves today on minimum length of stays and length of stay pricing. Okay. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. Let me see if everyone can see it. All right. All right, perfect. So as we mentioned, we're gonna start speaking about optimizing the stays and the restrictions for to boost the revenue. Okay, so let's start with the first page. The winds of change. So as you might know, in the past, the revenue has always been based on strategies, based on pricing rules, always on rates and upon demand. So it was quite a basic structure, nothing to take in account the minimum of the stay. It was everything quite standard, quite static. And the strategy for pricings, depending on the length of the stay, was quite really new. There was nothing there until software like PriceLabs came aboard and started presenting more different options in order to base your strategy. So the first thing that we're going to talk is obviously as we thought about once upon a time, as I was mentioning in the past, no? Everything what it was based in the pre-digital revolution. So as you know, before there was no OTAs or any technology that it will help to simplify all these kinds of procedures that we're doing nowadays. And so everything, as we can have here, was more based on weekly rates that even though they were published on print, or maybe you could find from time to time some old websites where it won't give you even the availability or the calendar, where the minimum length of stay will be 7 nights. So as you may know, in the past, it was really hard to get pricing really up to date. So it will be more based on occupancy. So no matter the profit, no matter on how much profit I'm gonna get out of the reservation, but it will be everything focused on getting the maximum occupancy possible. So not thinking on we can get less occupancy and more profitability, less expenses. Um, but obviously, as we mentioned, there was no technology there to help you with that. So then obviously it came abroad, all the new OTAs that we have nowadays. One of them, and most of you know them, Airbnb, which was not the first OTA, but the first one more based on apartments and short-term rentals in our sector. And that brought attention from other OTAs that they were already on the hotel sector, such as Booking.com or Expedia, and disrupting the industry, as we were mentioning. They started changing the game and helping all the property managers to get online all the properties. Therefore, bringing new kind of clients that they will be looking not just for week holidays, but also as well different kind of reservation, different kind of trips. So the property managers, they will have to adapt to this new technology and this new digitalization, trying to provide a new product, new type of reservations, and obviously more flexibility as the new travelers, they will have new expectations, different types of traveling as well, no? After that, obviously, came a big step on that, which is the COVID. Did transform again all the industry. We were coming from a big, nice 5 years of growth from more or less 2015 all the way to almost 2020, with a big growth on the short-term rentals, big digitalization, as we mentioned, lots of technologies, lots of new software, such as PMSs like Hostify, such as dynamic pricing tools like PriceLabs. That it looked like this was never ending, and the growth was keeping a good path. But then, of course, the COVID, as we all know, came. But even though it was a huge impact in the industry and stopped most of the hospitality, not just the short-term rental, but also the hotels, it transformed a little bit about our industry. And this is one of the topics that we'll be talking today, and the importance of the minimum length of stay and the length of stay pricing with the new midterm stays. So actually, even though the COVID was a huge impact and stopped with lots of cancellations, lots of people not being able to travel, um, some companies, some property managers managed to adapt and get these midterm bookings as the some necessities, some regulations, some restrictions made some of the locals or people that were established in a city to stay longer in for a period of time in a place. So obviously the hotel was a bit too expensive. You won't have the facilities such as the washing machine or to be alone in an apartment, as you know, in the hotel a room, it will be too small, too narrow as well. So it gives us the chance, our sector, to recover faster from this epidemic, and obviously as well adapt to the new traveler that it was coming up and the new way to travel for the whole world, no? And here we're gonna see, although it's not seeing really good, I'm not sure why. Can you see properly, Fausto? It's a bit blurry, no?
Yeah, I'm not sure why, but it's a little bit blurry.
Okay. Just to let you know, I know the colors by heart. The one at the bottom is going to be the 2019. And as we can see, the reservations, the length of stay, it was, I think, around 4 nights, more or less, the average. And then how it started increasing on 2020. Obviously, it went crazy during COVID time. And it was one of the periods where the length of stay was like huge and much higher, but then started establishing itself as well. It was dropping a little bit, but then in 2021 it remained high, and it changed from 2019 the way that the travelers were doing. So they were doing longer trips, longer stays, and it changed completely the way that we were having in the past the reservations in the short-term rentals. And as we can see, the green one is the 2022. Even though it dropped again from 2021, as we may know, in 2021 there were still some regulations at the beginning of the month, is still comparing the end of 2020. So it looks like the increase is going to be higher than 2019, but it's going to remain steady now, as we've seen, between 4 and 5 nights, the average night the staying for the clients. So, and this is bringing us for the post pandemic, what really happened, and the new client and the new product that we are talking about, no, the new nomads, the necessity, the no necessity actually to attend to the offices. Nowadays, as you may know, everyone can work from everywhere. And the offices, some of them, some of the big companies, they left the imposed to be in the office, from Monday to Friday. Nowadays, you can attend from time to time. You can attend maybe some days of the week. So that made some customers, or some actually these nomads, to actually be able to work remotely, from vacation places, from ski resorts, depending on the season, or our hobbies, or whatever we like the more, to work for a period of time, like months, a few 3-4 months, to work on projects here and there. So it gives us the chance as well to the short-term rentals for the low season, actually, to bring these clients and actually get the most of it from, as we mentioned, from the revenue, no? As well, one of the things and the signs that we've seen, obviously during the COVID time, the booking window, it decreased dramatically. They do it as well for the restrictions and everything that was going on there, that we didn't know if we could travel or not. It was always last minute travel. Now it is returning to normal, although we're still seeing like a relative short booking window between reservations or between trips. And finally, as well, the rental supply, as our sector is getting more standardized and is getting less fragmented, we've seen the supply, how is it coming abroad, and how is it spreading all around the world. I think we've seen an increase last year from US, from 1% of all the properties that they have available, the apartments, it doubled up to a 2%. And it's happening nowadays with new trending markets such as Mexico, Latin America, or even in Asia, in Dubai, no? And as we mentioned, the extended bookings, that's one of the things that it didn't change, and it came to stay. So it's not like the reduced booking window. The extended bookings are here to stay, and here we have some data from VRBO where it has increased 68% from the family trips to stay between 21 to 30 days. So they are not coming anymore for maybe a week or 4 or 5 days, trying to match with a bank holiday. So nowadays the families, they make trip, they do big trips, they stay for longer, and obviously they will need apartments, not hotels, for such a long stays, no? For the commodity and for everything, they will need apartments such as the ones that our property manager is offering. And finally, as well, they say that 59% they are more likely to take 2 weeks vacation, and 30% is going to take a sabbatical, like a full year where they can work. They don't need to work remotely. They can be anywhere. So they will be here and there staying, and obviously there will be long stays. So as we can see, it's not just a topic that it happened during the COVID, but it's a thing that is becoming more normal. And new bookings partners as well, they're emerging. We've seen from the 33% year to year that the families do not necessarily have vacation during the school breaks or company holidays. So as we mentioned, not just the sabbatical as well, they don't need anymore the kids to be during holiday season. They can take the kids as well away for a period of time. So new clients, new products, new trends are happening. So it's not anymore the usual service that the property managers used to give. So that's why we are here as well, all the softwares or the companies, to help them to try to attract this new demand. And finally, just a point from ourselves, nobody has obviously a crystal ball. There are so many speculations right now about the recession that is happening or is already happening in some areas. The rise of the regulation in every country, so trying to stipulate what's going to happen with the different industry depending on where you locate it. And finally, as we mentioned, the new trends and the new tendencies for the new travelers is not anymore, couples or families. There are so many different aspects to have in account, no? So this is all from my side. I'm going to pass it over to Fausto. I'm not sure if you would like me to share from you, or you will share it.
Yeah, you can share from there.
Yeah. All right, go ahead.
Okay. So, welcome all. Thank you for joining the webinar. So I will start a little bit with the relationship between state restrictions and revenue management. It's something very common that people, when talk about revenue management, they only focus on the price and rates and nothing else. There is also a relation between rates and minimum stays, but stay restrictions is something a little bit different. Okay, so the relation between minimum stays and price, it's a little bit of terms of length of stay pricing, this kind of options, but sometimes having stay restrictions is the better strategy and the better choice. Okay. So if you can jump to the next one. Yeah. So what are stay restrictions? Basically, we say that is the power to say no. So it's basically saying, I don't want a certain booking, and I want that my strategy be on have a certain focus, certain goal, and not accept every kind of booking. Sometimes this is good, bad. It depends on the strategy. Very important is this has mainly 3 different aspects that are connected. The length of stay settings. You have to have a system, it's PMS, revenue management system, whatever, that has the possibility to have length of stay settings. You have to have the ability to have settings related to check-in and check-out. Of course, you can do all of this manual, a little bit more complicated, and you have to be able to manage your pricing. Next one. Yeah. So what stay restrictions in terms of control, it affects, like, basically there are 3 different teams or reasons on why to use them. The first one is operations. Okay, so it reduces the turnover and avoid risks of shorter stays. So basically, less check-ins, less cleanings, less the properties will not have so much maintenance, so there will be less cost related to that. Of course, in some situations there are people that might make money and make profit with check-ins, with cleanings, in that case, maybe you should have shorter minimum stays if this is the best strategy for you. But in case you are not making any money and this is like a headache in terms of cleaning, the majority of property managers, the main problem is cleaning and maintenance and the amount of check-ins. So if this is an issue with you, maybe state restrictions will help you on optimizing your results. The second one is the revenue team. So for the revenue team has to understand and has to know exactly what they want in terms of goals and bookings. Okay, being able to choose who you want to book, it means that you already have some work done. That basically is having a correct segmentation of your client, so you know what kind of client you want, so you can focus on that client instead of accepting everyone. And the third one is regulations, that all companies nowadays, well, with some exceptions, but in the majority of the markets, there are issues with regulations, there are issues with the city halls, there are issues with the local governments. So regulations is important as well. If you want to comply with the regulations, usually you have to have state restrictions and state restriction strategies. Restrictions are widely used during periods of strong demand. This is mainly in leisure markets and seasonal markets. For example, if you are in a beach area in Spain, for example, traditionally you were selling 7 days, week by week. You come in, you check in on Saturday, you have another check-in on Saturday, so you have like 100% occupancy, all like week by week. So it's normal that when there is strong demand, you have very high occupancy and longer stays. It's usual. The issue comes when in low season. The issue comes in urban markets, or when the market behavior changes, and you have to start, and you don't have these families coming 1 week vacation, and you have a market like Madrid or Barcelona or Paris where you have 2 days, 1 day, 3 days, 4 days, all kind of people coming to the market. In those cases, you should be able to adapt your trade restrictions to the season, to the demand, and to your goals. Okay, don't sell one night just because in the market there are one-nighters. If it's not your goal, if it doesn't bring you, if it's not the best choice for you in terms of operation, in terms of revenue, don't do it just because in the market it exists. If your goal is to have occupancy, no matter what, maybe that's the best choice. Okay, restrictions are rarely talked about when we discuss RM data, and this is very important. And I will explain this graph because some people get confused. You see that the 6 month and the 7 night stays. Imagine this: you are looking to a graph and you see in your own properties, you look at your own data and you see, okay, the majority of my bookings are 2 to 4 months or 1 to 2 months. And I have a lot of 3 days or 4 days or 5 days or 6 days. And maybe I don't have a lot of 7 days, or I don't have a lot of people booking more than 6 months in advance. Why? Because I already have shorter bookings in my calendar. If I have a 2 days, a 3 days, a 4 days booking, I will never be able to sell 7 days on that week. So it's normal that if your strategy is not focused on the longer minimum stay, it's normal that the majority of your bookings are not the longer minimum stay, because you already have bookings in your calendar. You will not be able to focus on that one. One of the main, can you change to the next graph? One of the main mistakes, one of the main mistakes is that no one, well, we can change this one. One of the main mistakes in the industry is that no one sees the bookings that they lose. So when you look at data, you always look at your own data, and you have the data that you booked. So you have the length of stay that you actually was booked in your properties. You have the booking window that you booked, but you never compare with what you lost. So, for example, was there, and it's hard to get this data, was there in that market, was there a lot of people looking for 7 nights and couldn't find a home for 7 nights because everything was booked? Was there a lot of people and they have to book 3 and 4 nights in a certain place and then move hotel to another one or move apartment to another one just because they didn't find a place where they can stay all the 7 weeks? It happens a lot of times. People don't take into account. People don't pay attention. This is common, for example, when there are events. There is a conference and you want to stay 1 complete week in a certain apartment, and you cannot get an apartment for that week because that weekend is completely booked. So you have to book in 2 different apartments to be able to find your stay. Okay, can you change it? Okay, how will this start to increase my bottom line and change it? Basically, and we've been talking about this for 3 years now. Basically, having a kind of I don't like very much saying dynamic minimum stay, but being able to change your minimum stay restrictions depending on the situation, depending on the tactic or the strategy that you are using, and depending on seasonality, depending on day of the week or weekend versus weekday, etc. But having different minimum stays, not per season only, but depending on a lot of variables. So you can create progressive minimum stays. You can have minimum stays depending on the booking window. You can have minimum stays depending on the dates, depending on the weekend versus weekday. You can have minimum stays per season. You can have minimum stays depending where your client is coming. Not in every system, not in every situation, but you can do all of this if you want. And you can also increase prices for shorter minimum stays. You can mix the minimum stay restriction with pricing as well. But you should have this kind of strategy. It's a common mistake having 1 minimum stay per season and done. It might work. It doesn't mean that it could not be best. If you could still optimize it. It works, but you can still optimize a little bit. Yeah. So this is based on our clients. Okay, we don't know if it's general. We in our clients we see that managing restrictions well can lead to a 5-10% revenue lift. So basically, you can increase your revenue between 5 to 10% only with straight restrictions. We are not talking about dynamic pricing or no. Only using stay restrictions, you can get a better result in terms of 5 to 10% revenue. Next graph. Where does this lift come from? We can change and show some examples. So basically, it's the opportunity cost. Every time you lose the opportunity to make money, so you have a potential gain and you don't make money, you are losing money. And that's a common mistake. So sometimes say, okay, I didn't lose money. I just lost the opportunity of making a little bit more. So it's opportunity cost. Basically, you lost the opportunity to make money, so you lost possible revenue. I know that you didn't lose the actual revenue that you have, but you are losing the opportunity to increase your revenue or increase your results. And this is just an example. We will jump from 3, but basically imagine that you are looking for a 4 nights that want to book the 14th, okay? Of course, if I say to you, how many possible dates a guest can stay to be in the 14th of my home, he can start on the 11th, on the 12th, the 13th, the 14th, the 13th, or the 14th, right? But can you jump to the next one? If you have already someone staying in the 15th and the 16th because you have a 2-night booking, in reality, can you jump to the next one? You lost the other 3 dates. So now in this property, if someone wants to stay from the 14th and more and stay till the 15th or 16th or 17th, in reality, and you will only be able to stay these 4 nights if you are coming on the 11th. So this is a very simple example, but it seems that it doesn't seem as special, but when you have a lot of properties, and this happens a lot, and this happens in a lot of markets. For example, a market like that weekend strong. For example, Madrid usually has more people in weekends than in weekdays booking. If you have all the weekends booked 2 nights, you completely lost the opportunity to sell 3-4 nights. Okay, so if someone wants to stay 4 nights and stay a weekend, and you already have all Fridays and Saturdays, or they will come on Monday and leave on Friday, or they will just not stay with you. if they want to come on Wednesday or Thursday and stay till Monday, for example. Okay, so it's very important. Don't have a lot of bookings blocking 2 days or 1 day in your calendar, because you might be losing the opportunity to sell a 4-night, or 5-night, or 6-night, or 7-night. Okay, can we continue? Yeah, change. Okay, let's do an example of a minute. Okay, this is very important. No, the next one. Yeah, this is very important. Okay, and this one I want to talk to. Keep an eye on your own data plus market data. Okay, don't look only at yours, because yours will only show your strategy, but it will not show how the market behaves. So it will show your state restrictions that you have actually. And remember that demand patterns change over time. So if you see a demand pattern happening now, it doesn't mean that next year will be the same. COVID showed us this much more aggressive than previous years. After COVID, the booking window changed a lot in a lot of markets. So it's very important that you understand that it changes over time. It's not static. We can jump to the next one. Okay. Also, demand patterns differ by location. Okay, this is just 3 examples, but this is just an example in terms of length of stay. These are 3 completely different markets. Okay, in 2 of them, the 1 to 2 nights is almost nothing. For example, in Northern Iceland, it's like 50% of the bookings. Okay, so if I'm at Northern Iceland, I should accept 1 to 2 nights, or 2 nights, or 3 nights, or 4 nights, etc. Okay. Of course, I can focus on the 7 nights but the market share, it's much more. Okay, but if I am on one of the other markets, I might not want to accept less than 5 nights or 6 nights, for example. Okay, so you have to understand how the market behaves to make your decision as well. And even if you are in markets that are close to each other, always look at the market data. Sometimes it might be different. Yeah, we can jump to the other one. Okay. Also, by property size. Okay. Don't do the same strategy of minimum stays for a 1-bedroom to a 5-bedroom or 6-bedroom or 4-bedroom. Okay. A studio 1-bedroom will behave in a certain way. A 4-bedroom will behave on another one. Don't book 1 night in a 4-bedroom just because your market has people interested in playing in booking 1 night. If this will bring you a lot of logistics, cleaning time, etc., etc. So avoid having a good strategy. But don't say no to a good deal. For example, if you have a 4-bedroom, in spite you have a lot of 4 nights or 5 nights booking, but in reality you can sell a 2 nights at the same price of 7, why not? Okay, but if you really sell it much more expensive. Okay, so having stay restriction doesn't mean that you should only sell it at a certain minimum stay. You can have the 5 nights minimum, 6 nights minimum as a goal, but if you have someone booking 2 nights that are willing to pay the same as 6, it's still a good deal. So just understand how the market behaves and just try to adapt your product to the market. Very important as well, adjust your stay restrictions seasonally. Okay, talked about it. This is just a real example. Depending on the season, depending on the month, for example, the shortest stays are very high, 3 to 4 nights in some months. In some others, the 29 plus, 14 to 28 are much lower. So, for example, if I was in this market, maybe in winter from November to March, I imagine that this is winter, maybe it's in the northern hemisphere, I will probably focus on digital nomads. Maybe it's some place where people from countries with a colder weather come to stay at the winter because it's hotter or something like that. But it has a lot of 29 plus 15 to 28 days in winter, okay, and in low season because the occupancy is low. So in low season, maybe I will try to get those bookings and don't care about the 2 or 3 or 1, etc. The same for the future, okay? Snowboards tend to book their long stays early. So if you have people booking in the future, always see that people that book more time tend to book with a larger booking window. You can pass, Joan. Yeah. Okay. Also, the lead time. Okay, this is an example that I use because it's really a very weekend-heavy city. Having understanding when for example, if I show this graph, I will see that every weekend there's a lot of occupancy. Occupancy goes till 80%, 90, 70 something. Okay, weekdays go down. So in this case, I have to be very careful with my minimum stays because I don't want to set a very high minimum stay, and people that come from weekend will not book. But I have to do something for the weekdays to try to book it. I also have to understand when are they booking. Why? Because if I know that 50% of these bookings come in the last week, I can set a strategy that I want a longer minimum stay, 5 nights, 6 nights, or 4 nights, till 1 month prior or 3 weeks prior to the arrival. But then at that point, I will accept the 2 nights. So I will still leave it open till a certain moment to try to boost my occupancy and have a higher revenue in selling some weekdays for someone that wants to stay 4 nights, 5 nights, or 6 nights. But then inside the booking window where people start to book the weekends, I will open it to 2 to avoid losing the sales. But I don't want to sell 2 nights for July of the next year, for example. In this case, I want to try to sell 4 or 5. But of course, if there's a lot of 2-nighters, I want to sell it. So I will wait till the right moment and change it. The same, this is exactly the same data as before, but just showing, for example, the amount of 2 nights or 3 to 4, 5 to 6 in a certain So, for example, in this case, imagine that I will never, my minimum stay here in this market will be 3 nights. You see by the colors, the majority of the bookings through all year round is 3 to 4, 5 to 6 some, 2 and 1 very few. So I will probably focus on minimum stay of 3 nights all year round, or in the future a little bit more, and then 3 nights minimum in the last 30 days or 60 days, depending on the booking window. But I will never sell 1 or 2 nights unless it's gaps, and trying to fill gaps and increasing the price in this case. Okay, the same. Don't keep in mind the lead time. Try to fill the gaps. Very important. Fill the gaps. Okay. Can we jump? Adapt restrictions depending on availability. This one is very, very important, okay? Depending on your availability, you should adapt the restrictions. You should not do this you can do this manually, but you have to do it as a process. You cannot do this by intuition or based on what you think that day, but then next day you have the same situation and you change the process. If you continuously change the process that you are using, you will never know the right process that works for you. So you don't know if your tactic and your strategy is good or bad. Even if you don't use a software to do this automatically, do it always the same way. Write the rules. Say, okay, if I have in the next 15 days a 2-night gap, I will change the minimum stay for a 2-night. If in the next week I have for example, 2-day gaps or 1-night gaps, I will open the calendar, but create rules. Don't do it like, okay, today I think I'm going to open, in other situations I don't. Okay, it has to be a rule. Gaps are very important and are a way of improving occupancy and improving revenue. Okay, there are 2 ways of. Can you change, Joan? Yeah, there are 2 ways of working gaps. You can open the gaps to focus on occupancy and increasing occupancy, so you can decrease and give a discount on a gap to try to fill it. You can use a gap to you really don't want it very much, but if you want it, you want to be expensive, just to increase your revenue. So you can use those 2 strategies: increasing revenue or giving a discount to optimize occupancy. You can also use 2 strategies that are a little bit more advanced, but I still think they are very useful. That is adjusting the minimum stay and the price if you want, but in this case, focusing on minimum stay for the immediate days after a check-in and before a check-in and after a checkout. So imagine something like this. After a checkout, I don't want 1 night's minimum or 2 nights minimum. Immediately after a checkout, the same day of a checkout, I want to avoid checkouts and check-ins at the same day, but I don't want to close the calendar. I just want to avoid having a bad booking there. So maybe the day immediately after a checkout, so the day that I have a checkout, I will only accept a booking if it's a 6 nights minimum. Okay, so I will still accept it if it's a 6-night because it's a good deal, but I will not accept the 3 nights coming in that day because I have a 3-bedroom or a 5-bedroom. It's a lot of work to do the cleaning, so I need a little bit more time. But if it's a 6 nights or 1 week, I don't want to lose that deal. Okay, so the next day you already accept a 3 nights or 4 nights or the normal minimum stay. Okay, but this is very useful. That is changing your minimum stay immediately after a checkout. Okay, can you change to the other graph? Before the check-in, the strategy changes, and here a good strategy is 1 day immediately after a check-in, I want to accept 1 night. 2 days immediately after a check-in, 2 nights, and then I will come back to my normal 3 nights. Why? Because even in spite you are accepting a 1 night or a 2 night, you will never create a gap. This will only happen together with another booking. So you just see this as an extension of the booking. So you will never have gaps. So the risk, it's almost zero to having these days. Of course, this 1 night or 2 night, if you need to increase the price to be profitable, you should do it. You should increase the price in the 1 night or the 2 night to be profitable. But don't close this door. Because imagine that you have, just randomly, you have 2 or 3 weekends that you have check-in on Saturday. And you have a 2 nights minimum or a 3 nights minimum as a rule. What happens is that if someone wants to check in on Friday, they can't because Saturday is already booked. So no one that wants to spend the Friday out or Friday at your apartment, they will not be able. Maybe if you decrease to 1 night, you have a lot of people staying from Friday to Saturday. And you will not have a lot of people coming from Thursday to Saturday. In the case that you don't want this kind of booking, you don't do it. But in case it's a good idea for you, do it. So don't forget also to adjust this minimum stays immediately before a booking, because it doesn't create gaps. So where do we go from here? Just like nightly rates, stay restrictions are important. Okay, as I mentioned at the beginning. Don't focus only on pricing. There's much more in revenue management. There's segmentation, there's forecasting, and there's minimum stays. Okay, minimum stays are very, very, very important. Can we change it? Okay, so this is the end. If you have any thoughts or questions, you can also reach out to the emails. I think my email wasn't there. No problem. You can reach out as well, but you can also reach out to support@pricelabs.co. Or in our website, and we will answer any question. And if we have any question, I will be open to answer.
Yeah, we have one. Thank you very much, Fausto. Well, it was really interesting. So you have already the first one from Susana. How do I know what's the best minimum length of stay strategy?
So the best minimum stay strategy, there isn't one correct answer. It depends on 2 things. One, it's your operation, and for example, can you do a lot of cleanings or not? Do you make money with the cleanings or not? Do you have check-ins? Is it easy for you or not? And always do your strategy based on your data as well, and depending on the size of your properties. But you have to compare the market data. So before doing the strategy, look at the market data. See what is normal in your market. What is the majority of bookings? For example, is the majority of bookings 3 nights booking, 4 nights booking, 2 nights booking? And if you have a lot of bookings from 3 nights plus, maybe the best option is the 3 nights minimum, but not always. Okay, you should adapt it depending if you can do short-term minimum stays. So focusing a little bit depending on the booking window. My suggestion is always have a strategy at least with 3 different minimum stays. For example, if your normal minimum stay is 3 nights, always reduce to 2 at minimum stay, for example, at the last minute, and always increase a little bit to 4 for bookings far out. So I will always suggest at least these 3, having different minimum stays depending on the booking window. I will also suggest specific dates, for example, Easter, New Year's, and seasons. If you think that you are in a market that high season should have a longer minimum stays. So saying that one correct minimum stay, I will say that the correct one, if we really want to see one to be the normal one, is to check your market and see what is the most common one.
Perfect. If anyone, we have another one. How many length of stay should I establish to get the best of the revenue?
How many length of stays? It depends also in each operation, but as I mentioned, I would at least 3 I will use together with orphan gaps. I would change it at least from one for minimum for last minute, one normal, one for far out, but for bookings more than a certain period in the future, and for sure open the gaps. I will not say everyone to open one night because sometimes the logistics and the operation doesn't allow it. But if you can, try to sell all the gaps you can. I think it's important.
Amazing. And as Fausto mentioned, like you can always reach us for any questions, either to your email, sales@hostify.com or info@hostify.com. And as well for Fausto, I think he mentioned already the emails, which it was, sorry, Fausto, can you repeat it?
Yeah, it can be to support@pricelabs.co. It's not .com, .co, or Fausto@pricelabs.co.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Fausto, for being with us. Very instructive. So we hope to see
Thank
you in
you.
the future. And thank you everyone for attending.